So the Gorton and Denton by-elections given everyone on the political internet exactly what they wanted. The Greens get to say, look, we can beat Reform, we did it. Reform get to say, well, we are the real opposition on the right now. Our vote went up. And Labour get to say, look, this is very disappointing, but also it's actually kind of fine. And also, we see this as a bit of a wake up call, but also it's kind of good for us in the long term if you just sort of tilt your head and squint. And I'm just sat here like, what are we doing?
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
Turnout was what, 47, 48%? Which means that roughly 53% of Gorton and Denton looked at the ballot paper, looked at the campaign leaflets, looked at the entire political circus and went, I'm good, thanks. This was the political equivalent of just being like, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to have tap water. Thank you very much. Because I think if politics wants people to come back to it, it has to come back home. So, quick recap of what actually happens, just so we're all on the same page. This was a safe Labour seat. This was proper classic Manchester Labour. They had more than half the vote of the general election, but now at the recent by election, the Green Party have won the seat. And they did not just squeak in. No, 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 no. They absolutely smashed Labour's vote. They came first, and it is their first ever Westminster by election win. Reform came second with a big jump in their vote as well. Labour fall to third from unlosable to third place in your own home in under 2 years.
No, don't like that.
This was meant to be the political equivalent of just changing a light bulb, and instead the whole ceiling fell in. The Conservatives and Lib Dems are basically just a ghostly foot now. I mean, they lose their deposit, which at this stage just kind of feels like a sort of mercy killing.
Money, please!
If you look underneath the headlines, the turnout has barely moved. It is almost identical to the general election. So, yes, the parties on the ballot have changed, and the people who are excited enough to vote have also changed. But the number of people who look at British politics and go, this still isn't for me, has stayed almost exactly the same. And I think that tells you something a little bit deeper than Greens good, Labour bad, and Reform rising. I think Gorton and Denton is one of the first proper by elections of a new era of politics. Not because a new party has won, no, that's happened before, but because of the way it exposes the shape of politics now. Everyone always talks about the Overton window like there is a single national window of what you're allowed to say, and I've done it before. But now, on reflection, I do not think that that exists anymore. Instead, we have options. On the progressive side, you have one window. Let's call it the Green Labour Liberal window. We'd come up with a new name, but let's call it that for now. Inside that, you can say almost anything you want about climate justice and Gaza and diversity and trans rights, and Britain needs to reckon with its past, and you get points for compassion and inclusivity. But if you raise questions about immigration or globalism or social cohesion or protecting women's rights or Islamism or statues, you are suddenly one sentence away from being a character in a BBC drama that everyone is allowed to hate. And they'll probably have Olivia Colman playing you by Christmas. Then you have the other window on the right. Reform, a drowned out Conservative Party, and now Restore Britain. Again, we need a snappier name. But inside that second window, you can say basically anything you want about deportations and borders and social collapse, and you get points for telling it like it is. But if you add in caring about heritage, suddenly you're told we've got a lot more important things to worry about. Suddenly try saying, you know what, I really do want us to fix the rivers and the wildlife, and bam, you're basically Greta Thunberg. So instead of one Overton window, we now have two completely different windows with two completely different sets of curtains in two houses that use the same street but never talk to each other.
I find out, man? What do I find out? There is no Pepe Sylvia. The man does not exist, okay? So I decided, oh, shit, buddy, I gotta dig a little deeper. There's no Pepe Sylvia. You gotta be kidding me. I got boxes full of Pepe.
And if you zoom out of that, the real split now isn't just left versus right. It's global versus local. It's Britain as a brand versus Britain as a home. And I am just not sure we have a mainstream party who thinks that way. And if we do, they're not getting their message out there. Because somewhere along the line, politics has become global, but people here have stayed local. Everything now is about Britain on the world stage, Britain as an idea, Britain as a sellable identity, and Britain as a brand. Meanwhile, millions of us already know what Britain is, and this isn't it. Neither window rewards local, practical, steadfast stewardship kind of politics. The people who love high streets and cities and countrysides as well, who just want Britain to feel like a home and not a concept, get laughed at from both directions. And Gorton and Denton is one of those first places where those two windows have properly gone face to face. The Greens have become the main vehicle for the global progressive side, and Reform have become the main vehicle for the global populist side. On one side, you have a Green Party that's running candidates who talk about Gaza and trans identity and climate change, and on the other side, you have a Reform Party that has literally started copying the identity playbook they claim to hate. The same people who complain about sectarian voting are loudly saying, actually, we're doing really well with the Muslim vote in London, and putting up a Muslim woman as their proof. It's the exact same logic. We have someone from your community, therefore your community now belongs to us. They're all doing it. They just give their version a nicer label. Labour do multicultural representation, the Greens do solidarity and protest. Reform do we speak for the ignored white working class, while also trying to show off their diverse candidates. Different vibes, same game. The second thing it reveals is the sheer identity crisis of the old big parties. For Labour, this should be existential. You cannot call yourself the party of the working class, lose a seat you have held for almost a century, and then come third behind a left-wing protest party and a right-wing revolt party at the same time, and then pretend that this is just a kind of blip. That's not a blip, babe. That's a spiritual collapse. They're losing people on immigration, borders, crime, the general feeling this country is not working. But they're also losing others on Gaza and Palestine and foreign policy, and a sense that Labour won't stand up for anything for fear of being labelled extreme. You cannot be everything to everyone. And I am going to talk about this a little more in a future video, but we're just becoming walking Venn diagrams, trying too hard to be everything to everyone that we stand for absolutely nothing. But for the Green Party, this has been the dream. They get a 5th MP, they prove that they can beat Labour, and they get to say we are now the real left-wing opposition, not just a protest vote. But they're not really green, are they? I mean, not in the way that a lot of normal people would imagine a Green Party to be. Because a genuine Green Party in the real world would be pro-countryside, pro-localism, pro-sustainable British energy, pro-animal welfare, pro-farming, pro just loving your country, pro can my kids please grow up with actual wildlife that is not just a pigeon on a bin. And we don't really have that party right now. We have a Green Party that's very good at protest, at Gaza, at climate slogans. It's very online, it's very urban, it's also very student. But the people who would absolutely vote for a proper, patriotic, pro-countryside, save the bees kind of a green movement still cannot see themselves on the ballot paper. And then there's Reform, who are also having their own define the relationship kind of a moment. They can absolutely spin this as a success, but no one actually knows what they stand for anymore. And because of this confusion over what they want, they feel like a party constantly watching their backs, testing slogans, then reverse engineering their beliefs based on whatever plays best online that week. And this has really only happened in the last few weeks because of the growing online popularity of Restore Britain. But parties arguing about who they want to be is one thing. Who actually shows up for them is another. Which brings me back to the turnout. More people chose not to vote at all than voted Green. More people chose not to vote at all than voted for Reform and Labour combined. We are obsessing about the people who showed up. But I keep thinking about the ones who looked at this all and still felt they had no candidate to represent what they wanted. Because people aren't stupid. People do not skip elections because they've never heard of them, they don't know how to vote, or they don't know what the date is, or that they're just too lazy. And the more they stay home, the more politics get shaped by the people who feel safest in those two Overton windows. The missing half gets smaller in the conversation, even as it stays massive in real life and potentially expands. So my question coming out of Gorton and Denton is not just what will Labour do now, or is this the moment the Greens go mainstream, or has Reform UK peaked? My question is, what was that 52-53% of non-voters missing? I do not think that most of those people are anti-politics. I don't think they're lazy or stupid or they don't care about what's happening in their towns. It's not apathy, it's standards. I think what is missing in British politics is the politics of stewardship, not stage performance. But instead, the people who might vote for that end up with a choice between a Green Party that talks more about ideology than actual trees, a Reform Party that keeps morphing depending on the algorithm, a Restore Party that may only be popular online, a Tory Party that is struggling to be heard above the cries of "you caused this mess," and a Labour Party that sounds like it's writing a policy document for a country that exists merely in its own head. So they pick none of the above, not because they do not believe in anything, but because nothing on the table is prepared to believe in what they believe in. And until any of these parties can answer the question of what is missing, it will not really matter which one wins the turnout game inside the top 40 or 45%. And the future of British politics depends far less on who won this election and far more on who finally bothers to knock on the door of the people who gave up and ask them what they actually want. But please, let me know what you think below. I mean, what do you think is missing in our political landscape? What will make people turn out to vote? But more importantly, who do you think is missing? Who is not choosing to vote? Because frankly, I am struggling to answer that question the most. But as always, let me know what you think and do think about giving me a like and subscribe. And I'll see you again real soon. Thanks.